Great leaders are people with great attitudes. They are people with an optimistic outlook. And let me tell you why. It's because nobody wants to follow anyone into a bleaker future. If you think the next 3 years in your district or your department are going to be hell on earth, who wants to follow you there? This is why great leaders are incurable optimists, or they learn to fake it really, really well. One of the fondest memories I have of growing up in Raleigh, North Carolina was being a fan of NC State football. I rarely missed a home game because I was a Boy Scout, and the university had made an agreement with the Boy Scouts that if we would show up 2 hours before kickoff in full uniform, they would provide us with a hot dog and a Coke. We could usher for the first quarter of the game, that is, look at people's tickets and tell them their seat was halfway down on the left. And then at the end of the first quarter, we could have a seat anywhere in the stadium and watch the remainder of the game. And I always made it my practice at the end of the first quarter to go down to the front row of the stadium right behind the NC State bench and find a seat there. And because I was a Boy Scout in full uniform, the adults usually let me get away with it. Even if there wasn't room on the bench, they would just squeeze in a little bit. From that vantage point, I could still see the game over the heads of the players because the field was sunken down. But much more importantly to me, as a kid, was how close I was to my heroes. I could see them with their helmets off. I could hear them talking to one another. I could see the coaches sitting on the bench right below me drawing diagrams on their clipboards. When I was 12 years old, NC State didn't have a very good football team. They were 3-8 that year. But then they fired their head coach and went out and hired a new up-and-comer that nobody had ever heard of at the time from William and Mary University, of all places, named Lou Holtz. Lou Holtz spun that football team on a dime. Went on years later to win the national championship at Notre Dame. They were 8-3-1 with a bowl victory in his very first year with the Wolfpack. And watching Lou Holtz for those 3 seasons he coached at NC State at such close proximity, as a boy, I learned one of life's most important lessons about dealing with adversity. Let's suppose that the NC State Wolfpack was behind by a touchdown in the fourth quarter. His team was driving for what he hoped would be the tying score when the unthinkable happened. A calamity occurred. An opposing defensive back, let's say, intercepted a pass and returned it the length of the field for a touchdown. Now his team is down 2 touchdowns late in the game. Do you know what Lou Holtz would do? He'd spin around to his team, get a fiery look of determination in his eyes, and clap his hands. He'd say, "That's okay. We'll come back." And they did. Time after time, I watched that team snatch miraculous victory from the jaws of defeat because they had a coach who was an incurable optimist. Now, I saw other coaches who didn't respond as well. They would slam their clipboard down so hard it's never been found. Or they would cuss a blue streak. Or if they weren't the cussing type, they would spit. And it was so caustic, the grass died for 3 feet and has never grown back to this day. But not Lou Holtz. No matter what happened, he'd always clap his hands and say, "That's okay. We'll come back." What does your face say, let alone your words, when something hits the fan in your department or your office or your district? "We're doomed!" Or does it say, "That's okay. We took it on the chin this time, but we'll be back. Bigger, badder, leaner, meaner, stronger than ever before"? You see, your people will tend to mirror what they see in you, but to a lesser degree. I call this the hemorrhage principle. If you want your troops to bleed, you must hemorrhage. Because whatever they see in you, they will mirror to a lesser degree. If you want your people to be excited about working for you and for the school district, you've got to swing from the light fixtures with excitement. Because whatever they see in you, they will tend to mirror to a lesser degree.